All right, here we go. Hello and welcome into the Section 109 podcast from Studio Breezy. Mix and Toby are with Ella for once, back in the back layers of the house, and so we shouldn't have too many interruptions. Matthew, you've joined me here to talk about CFC Women's 2-2 draw. I almost said 2-0 win. That was just in my dreams. 2-2 draw with the Nashville Rhythm. We knocked them off their rhythm, as you said right before the podcast started. Matthew, how you feeling?
Honestly, fantastic.
Sometimes a draw feels like a win, and this draw feels like a win.
Yeah, that draw definitely feels like a win. And if you kind of remembered us lamenting a little bit last year about how we struggled in games, and that this year was going to be, did you just spill that?
Just like 2 drops, yeah.
And that this year was going to be really telling for like what steps we took forward. We talked a lot about that on a previous podcast, and even like before we got the first goal to bring it to 2-1, when we're down 2-0 and we're in the game, we're not creating a whole ton, to be honest. And like Nashville's had a couple they would want back, and Caroline Johnson made a couple of big saves. But all in all, it felt like we had taken a massive step forward in the offseason. That we were second best on the day, but like we belonged on the same field, and that a lot of it was unfamiliarity of players with one another. There were so many moments where we were zigging when the teammate expected us to zag or whatever, and that they practiced like 4 times before this game, so it kind of makes a lot of sense. But like I had a decent, like I would have felt decently about this game ending 2-0, honestly.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to see if you got there, because I was going to say the same thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I prefer the 2-2. But last year, I was just going to try to look up because I forgot. I think last year
It finished 5-1.
6-1 away.
5-1 away, 6-0 at home.
Was it 5-1 away, not 6-1?
Mm-hmm.
So we lost a combined 11-1 to Nashville last year.
Yeah.
So the 2-0 where we were competitive all game until the 80th minute, like felt like an improvement, and it felt decent. And then the girls were not like satisfied with that.
I mean, you could definitely tell like from minute 1 that it was showtime. And what they didn't have a ton of possession. And they did struggle to string 10 passes together at times, but like that was an improvement from being able to string 2 passes together against this Nashville side, which was Nashville had a lot of their roster return. They lost a couple of key players, but they returned, I think, what was it, UPSL Best Player of the Year or WPSL, whatever it was.
NAIA
like,
Best Player of the Year in 2021.
Very, very good player. And like, so like once they got to midfield and really to like on the edge of the attacking third, that's usually when like our play would break down a little bit. If we were keeping possession, that's usually where it fell apart. Whereas last year we would have trouble getting out of the defensive third.
Yeah, so I think, and before, let's go to the starting lineups here in a second, but I think the story of this game was the midfield, and we had 5 players in the midfield. We played a 3-5-2, and I'll say that 3-5-2 here in a second, but that we had 3 players, or we had the 3 midfielders that are like always in the midfield section. It's a half a diamond. It's a triangle.
Yeah, we call that a triangle.
It's a half a diamond, which is also a triangle. Thank you, Andrew. And that those 3 players obviously stay in the midfield, right? But your wing backs, depending on how you're playing a 5-3-2, can be part of the line, the defense. They can be part of the midfield, or they could be part of the attackers. Usually, in a playing against a team that is better than you, at least on paper, we've been national semifinalists the year before, you expect those 2 wing backs to be pinned back as part of the 5 in the back.
You would also expect us to play 2 6s and not 2 10s.
Right, and we played a 6, an 8, and a 10, I would argue.
I would agree with that. Nadia was definitely coming back more often, but like in a perfect world, she's playing as a 10.
Yes, I agree. And also those 2 wing backs, well, they certainly did track back and defend a lot, and Bailey Doll did a shitload of defending. both of them made a lot of runs up the field, and there was a lot you can freeze frame a lot during this game with Nashville with the ball, where we're 5 wide all the way across the field in the midfield, and I think Nashville, unlike last year where they just overran our midfield the entirety of both games, in this game they really struggled to make a lot of the entire first half. Outside of the first goal, there's no other dangerous shot on target except for Caroline's one big save at the beginning. They're not creating anything this whole time. And the midfield was kind of where that battle was not won but waged.
It was very much reminiscent of a team that would pass it around the back a little bit, try to make a couple passes into midfield that immediately had to get bumped back to the back line. And it's that kind of point. And this happens a lot even with really, really, really good teams. I think Nashville is, or at least will be, where especially early in the season, you're still building some chemistry. You're still figuring out where people are more natural to go. Mm-hmm. And you can get a little frustrated with just a little bit of pressure, which Summer Hernandez was brilliant at providing pressure from the front.
Providing pressure?
Providing pressure from the front. And, you get a little bit of that team that kind of just runs out of ideas and just needs to hoof it.
And every time they hoofed it.
And every time they hoofed
we won it.
Last year, it was full on fucking chaos.
Yes. And we couldn't win the second ball. We also didn't win the first ball often enough last year. So we're not trying to shit on last year's team. We're able to compare what was a really upsetting's not even the right word. A really disappointing, dominant performance by them last year twice to a game this year that was pretty even outside of one player. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
That was incredibly good for them. Scored both their goals and created all of their danger. Outside of that, we won. Our center backs won just about every header,
just about everything first.
Our midfielders recouped the second balls.
Yeah, our midfield would track back, and depending on how you classify Katie Johnson and Bailey Dole in terms of are they midfielders or the defenders, whatever. But
depended on the moment of the game.
But however you want to classify them, the second ball was a feature of our defensive. A scheme and second balls matter in soccer games. They just do.
And I don't want to forget this point. Earlier on this season in a men's game, I complained about how often Taylor Gray was going 1-on-3 versus 3 or 4 defenders at a time or 2 defenders at a time. He was always outnumbered. This time it was us in a good way outnumbering there with Bailey and Anna on one side. That would be this side. And Katie and Avery on the other side.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think through my lefts and my rights here. As their wingers would try to come down, they really struggled because often they were 2-on-1 with us. We had 2 defenders, they had 1, and that was very, very good and very that's going to be if we play like we played defensively last night and our midfield plays like they do, and our attack was also improved. We're going to be a lot better.
With Nadia dropping back to try to become a second 6 in at times, you get this, kind of line of 2, 2 players in the middle, and then kind of a back 5 from there. So just having the numbers back was so critical. Mm-hmm. Adding that extra player, sometimes extra 2 players, and you can do stuff like that when you have someone like Summer Hernandez, who's a freak athlete up front, providing keeping the defense honest, number one, and being able to break out when.
And look, when we turned them over too, we ran triangles on the side of the field. So you'd have either Bailey or Katie. Your 2 wingbacks were just key to everything.
Yeah.
When we were trying to go forward, we were patient, and it didn't always result in a shot. Right. In fact, we didn't get enough shots off. Yeah. But unlike last year, we were able to sustain possession for a few seconds or sometimes a longer period of time, and we were able to work the ball up the field little by little, and not just be waves of pressure or just clear the ball and wait for them to come back. We were able to build out of the back, take it along, and if a couple balls get slipped through a little differently or their players don't make some great plays, we could be up, we could be goal on the board earlier, or we could be up earlier. I mean, we have the first chance of the game.
Yeah, I'm willing to put a guarantee out there that we are going to see a goal this year from a little triangle on the left side of the field. Ball's going to end up probably at the feet of Mara Grootkamp, and she's just going to ping one as the outside back for the opposition kind of tries to step to close down Katie Johnson. She's just going to ping a ball in behind and let Katie run onto it.
Kind of like the corner
is going to absolutely roast a center back trying to come over and cover, and it's going to be cut back in the box, tap in.
Yeah, hell
I'm,
yeah.
I'm calling it now.
I love it. All right, let's go to the starting lineup. One thing we're going to do differently with these WPSL games, at least for now, is we're going to mention the subs, who got subbed in and who got minutes. We are not going to mention when they subbed in. On the men's side, because there's only one sub per like 5 subs total allowed, and once you sub in, you're not allowed to sub out, et cetera, et cetera. And I've complained a lot about the WPSL.
You are allowed to sub back out. You get a new player and that's it.
Oh, sorry. You're right. You're only once you're subbed out, you're not allowed to come back in. I should rephrase.
Correct.
And I've complained about the WPSL, so I won't belabor that point here. But unlimited subs. So us keeping track of exactly who subbed in, exactly when, just that they subbed in and that they played and what they did is what we're gonna highlight here.
Yeah, it just makes it easier when we start also keeping like statistical records, and some of these teams aren't gonna have good video. It's gonna be really, really hard to do. So this is the best way we can do it and still make sure we record, games played at least.
Absolutely. So I'm writing down a couple notes there. All right, so in goal, Caroline Johnson. Welcome back, Caroline. My player of the match, if I was going to give out one of those, because she had the most... There's a lot of players that played very well in this match. I don't want to take it away from anybody, but she had 2 massive, massive saves. One towards the beginning of the game, one towards the end.
Yeah.
One-on-one, I mean, just huge saves. Those are super important. And look, Coach Randy talked about it in the post-game press conference. He said Caroline's the kind of player that even if you go down a goal, doesn't let it affect her.
Yeah.
She stays the same goalkeeper. She can keep you in a game even if you're down 2 goals. She can keep you in that game because her mentality doesn't change. So loved that. Welcome back, Caroline. Glad to see you out there.
Were you surprised that she started?
A little bit because, I mean, just to be frank, she hasn't played for a year. And at least 2 of the other goalkeepers played last year. I think all 3 of them did, but 2 of them are still in college for sure. So I kind of expected we might see somebody else because of the sharpness, but also like Caroline played 4 years at a high level. She played here last summer, and those players should have to beat her out because she is the returning starter.
I was just thinking that I wonder if a little bit, and like Randy mentioned how hard it was with 4 keepers in the post-game press conference about choosing one and kind of like you have to go with your gut a little bit. And I just wonder if playing the threat of rain, which ended up not being that bad. It was a little rain in the second half, but like
Thank God.
The weather really like calmed down for us. But I think that like the threat of rain scared off a bigger crowd.
Yeah,
but I was still surprised because I thought maybe the weather was going to be nasty all day. I was surprised at the turnout.
Yeah,
for expected conditions, it was a good crowd, and I just wonder, you can't really plan for weather, and like, is the crowd going to be big or like not, or a little bit smaller when you're putting together a starting lineup? You're trying to find the right players to play that day, but I just wonder if one of the kind of X factors for Randy in deciding to go with Caroline was that like she had been in the moment before. And we've said this, we talk about this a decent amount, even on the men's side. When you haven't played in Finley Stadium before in front of supporters who support unconditionally and
who bang drums all game and yell at the referee and yell at the other team and potentially
if you've never been in that
chaos
before, like it changes referees, it changes opposing players, and it changes our own players. And you need to sometimes experience that, but not necessarily get thrown into the fire. Yeah. And I just wonder if that was one of the X factors of, we know Caroline has done this before and like can meet the moment. And this is not a game you want to have someone shriek from that. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that any of our other goalkeepers would, but like that could be an X factor into why maybe he picked her.
Yeah, I agree with that. So Caroline at goalkeeper. Right wing back was Bailey Dole. Welcome, newcomer. I thought she did an unbelievable amount of defensive work.
Yeah, nothing dull about her game.
Nope. And a solid amount of offensive work as well. She was really, really solid, and she's a younger player as well. So loved seeing the kids get good minutes. And she didn't play like a kid. Anna Lancer, captain, right center back. No surprise in a back 3. Again, a 3-5-2. Avery Catlett in the center of that center that center back trio of three. I thought Avery was immense in this game. She won about 40 headers, as did the other Avery Engels, who was at left center back. Both of them, Avery Catlett listed at 5'9", Avery Engels listed at 6 foot, and every bit of that height was required all this game. Nashville was, outside of their goalkeeper, not very tall. They were technical and good, but they were not very tall, and I felt like we used our height to our advantage a lot, not necessarily offensively, but defensively. Every time they tried to play over the top, like you were talking about, we won the header. Katie Johnson, and I hope I'm saying your name right.
We got a pronunciation guide on that one.
Did you?
So it's Katie, like Kevin Durant, like KD.
Oh, KD. Okay, we're gonna put that in parentheses here. KD, you rule.
Although I really appreciated you trying to be like extra and being like Katie.
I don't know. There's also at least in one of the places I saw it listed, there's a little thingy, a little not apostrophe, not asterisk. What's the thing when you put accent? There was a little accent on I think the middle E. I don't know. KD, cool. So Katie Johnson and Avery Engels are a massive upgrade for the left side of this team.
Yeah.
Especially athletically. Both of them are better soccer players, but also much better athletes. And I mean that with no disrespect to anybody else, but they are bigger, faster, and stronger, both of them. And you saw that in this game. They were not overmatched technically, but we had some games that we were not overmatched technically last year in certain moments, but we were overmatched physically. And boy, can both of these girls really, really play. And I was so happy with their performance. And they're both left-footed. You don't get left-footed players on the men's or women's side oftentimes in the right moments. And getting those left-footed players on the field in positions where they thrived. I almost said throve when they thrived.
Yeah.
I really, really liked that pairing. I thought they played well all the way through, and I'm very excited to see how that develops throughout the summer. Samantha Maudsley at center defensive midfielder. I thought she had a solid game, and you pointed out our worst 10 minutes of the game where we did not concede, but we did concede a penalty, and then we were unlucky, or we were lucky a little bit to not concede another goal during that period of time was when she was off the field.
Yeah.
And the 6 is going to be really key, and I'll let you talk about that in a little bit. Nadia Ivanchenko, full international, though I couldn't figure out exactly how many games she's played or where she's played. But it says she's a full Ukraine international, and I believe it. She's young, by the way. She's still like not even 20, I think. She's born in 2003. I thought she was a little older. She's born in 2003.
Yeah.
God, we're old. Also,
Yeah.
Katie Johnson is a full international. She has 9 caps for Trinidad and Tobago, including, I think, 6 in World Cup qualifiers or 3 in World Cup. Anyway, I looked at the other day. It's very good, very impressive. And I think you saw that experience along with Mara Grutkamp, who's a German youth international. Katie, Nadia, Mara, Summer, the back line, like this is just a much more experienced team that's played at a high level, played in whether it's the W League, the WPSL, 4 or 5 years in college, played for their national team or their youth national team. Like the experience was palpable on this team, and I really, really, really liked it. Summer Hernandez, welcome back home, Summer. I was wearing a Summer Hernandez 10 jersey yesterday. She noticed in the bar, and I was like, darn right, this is for you, my hero. And she didn't score, but she was a menace all game, and she did get that assist.
Yeah, and I remember one stretch where she peeled out wide. I think it was in the first half, and there was like she I think took a little bit of a heavy touch on near the sideline or near the end line, and like by the time she actually was able to cross it, like it was basically already in behind the goal. And the next time that happened, she delivered an absolute dime that I believe was the header was blocked, or it wasn't a very good header or whatever it was. But like you saw what she brings to the table, and you saw how she can kind of create something out of nothing, and that's absolutely massive, honestly. Like her presence up top was noticed, and I think it also helped our midfield get a little bit of extra space, because that back line always had to pay attention to where she was, and if she was looking to run in behind.
Yeah, she was a problem, and she did the patented Lantern run. Those are the fastest. You know, Tom Cruise in all the movies looks like he's running the fastest of anybody. The Lanterns always look like they're running faster than everybody else. And she was great in this game. And Ava Van Doren, last but not least, has scored a bunch of goals for Dalton State. Is a very good player. She was very versatile in this game. She ended the game at right wing back, Matthew. which was fascinating and something that Coach Randy talked a little bit about in the post game as well.
Yeah, I thought Ava had a decent game. There wasn't a lot of action for her offensively.
She did a lot of running,
especially in the first half. There was a lot of running involved. I also thought it was really interesting how
she also dropped a lot deeper than Summer. Summer stayed up top.
I was going to say, I'm curious if there was like a because of like Nadia dropping in a little bit to help Sam Maudsley at the 6. I'm wondering if there was kind of a directive that Ava's the one that drops a little bit more to give a little extra help to Mara.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's certainly how it worked
although
out.
It seemed like she was like shading pretty hard to help protect Bailey Dull. But that also could have been my vantage point being on like the opposite side of the field in that first half.
I think she was just providing more of an outlet there. Like on rewatch, it didn't look like, I don't know, I wasn't paying super close attention. It looked like Ava was doing all the extra running in the midfield that a forward needed to do.
Yeah.
And Summer was doing all the extra running up top that a forward needed to do. And certainly they interchanged some and they ran together up top some. But it was just like she provided, again, we didn't win that game in the midfield, but we muddied that game up. We made that game difficult, and we really changed the game in the midfield. And part of that was Ava dropping deep, or whoever was playing dropping deeper into that midfield. And we have 4 forwards right now that I've seen play that have been productive and have been interesting. And number one, that's not something we've had. And number two, they all play it differently. So Kaylee Burrell got some minutes at forward. Actually, there's another forward in here that's not a forward that got minutes.
I was going to say, like, there's kind of 5 right now.
All right, so let's talk subs. So there were 4 other players, on this list that I have that got minutes. And if I'm forgetting somebody, I would love you to chime in case I didn't write anything down, or wrote something down wrong, rather. Brianna Hurtado, who got an assist. We'll talk about that in a minute. She came in and played, I don't know, she might have only played 10 minutes total, but was very, very productive during those 10 minutes and was wonderful. If folks may remember from... if you were listening to this podcast last year, she is the player most likely to meg you and talk shit. So, favorite of mine.
We stand that.
This podcast loves megs and talking shit. St. Louis or St. Louis, I apologize. We don't know how to say your name yet. I'm going to go St. Louis because I think that's more fun. A St. Lucia international. St. Louis is the St. Lucia female footballer of the year for like 5 years running. She scored a wonderful goal that we should talk about in a minute. Samali? Is that how we say her last name?
Sage Samali. Or Samalai, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So Sage came in, and Sage played some minutes as well, especially when Sam Maudsley went down with an injury, and she got some minutes in the midfield there, but she's more of an attacking player, so it'll be interesting to see how that develops.
I think she's more of a 10, like, truthfully. But, like, I think this speaks to... like our lack of depth at the 6 right now.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
Well, okay, fine. So, we've got Sam Maudsley.
One last thing. Kaylee Burrell's the other player that got minutes. Go ahead.
And got a goal.
And got a goal. We're going to talk about it for sure.
So Sam Maudsley is a 6. And I think very clearly, like, we want to be able to have the option of playing a 6 and 2 10s or 2 6s and a 10. But you're also trying to get your best players in the field as much as possible at the same time. So Sam Maudsley's a 6. Victoria Grant is a 6. I believe, but she's not in yet, and I think that limits, and I think she's supposed to be like a pretty like a starting level, however you slice it all together.
Victoria Grant
type player, yeah. So
we're missing a center back and a 6, right? That are
we were also
plus
missing
Grace Barker.
Yeah, we're missing Grace Barker Roberts, who was at the game.
Great jacket.
So yeah.
Great jacket. Didn't know that was her till later.
I think she arrived on like Friday or something like that.
Yeah, so she did not dress for the game, but she was around.
And I think she's more of a. Oh shit! They told me what she is.
Right center back or right?
Right, yeah, right center back.
Right center back or right wing back. Very interesting.
And we're also missing Serena Lewis, a central defender.
Yeah, so that's 2. We're missing 2 CBs. Maybe one could be a little flex right back and a 6.
So if you've got a starting level center back coming in, and
maybe.
If we do, and I don't know if we do.
I was going to say because I'm not sure where the depth chart is.
But like now you have the option for, you could move Anna Lanter out to right wing back.
You could move her to the 6.
Like you could move her to the 6. You've got Grace Barker Roberts, like
who might be the right wing back.
You've got like all of a sudden now like we had 4 subs total, or 4 different players came off the sub bench to play.
And several of them came in multiple times.
Brianna Hurtado did not get many minutes. She was really only in there because Kaylee Burrell got hurt on scoring the goal.
Neither did Sage.
Sage Samley was really only there because of Sam Maudsley's injury.
I'd have to go back and look. Sage might have got 5 minutes. 10 at the most. I think it's about 5. And Bree probably got between 10 and 15.
St. Louis and Kaylee Burrell, like,
each probably got 20 minutes.
Those were noticeable. Noticeable changes both in the first half and in the second.
Can you tell you and I did a lot of yelling yesterday at a game? Neither of us can make words happen.
Yeah. So, like, truthfully, like, I mean, and Hurtado and Samley did not get a lot of minutes, and like that's going to happen, like, game to game. Like, people are sometimes going to get a lot more minutes than others. But I think it's clear those are also situational, both for injuries, and St. Louis and Kaylee Burrell off the bench were really the only planned ones.
Well, here's an interesting thing about Brianna Hurtado as well. She took both set pieces when she came in.
Correct,
she took
which
the
was
corner
very
and a free
interesting.
kick.
Very, very interesting. Also, 2 great balls.
Yes.
So I think we are still missing a little bit of, like, regular depth.
It is the first game. What do we always say? Don't make assumptions after one game, and here we are.
Exactly.
We've never followed our own advice about anything.
Yeah. So I just think it'll be interesting to see what happens once all the pieces arrive, because I think more things can happen with the 6. Like, would we against Nashville? I would have played 2 6s and a 10.
Me too. We did not, because Randy has got bigger balls than the two of us. But yeah.
But also, like, we didn't really have, like, who we're going to play. Like,
yeah.
Like, at some point, you just have to roll with what you can. And, like, we kind of made it work with Nadia dropping back and kind of linking between the 6 and the 10 line.
Yes.
So I guess the moral of the story is it's like if you remember the NPSL season, those and even the WPSL season from years previous, things get weird, especially early. And
yeah, we don't have all our players, and they said on the broadcast that Nashville didn't have all of their players.
Right.
Like, it's
gonna
first
be
game of the season.
It's gonna be a different game on June 10.
Do we play Charlotte Eagles?
I believe so.
Check the schedules. I know we play Charlotte FC. I don't know if we play Charlotte Eagles.
I don't think we play Charlotte FC because that would be weird, because that's a men's MLS team.
Well, we would beat them, obviously,
because they suck.
Yeah, because they're terrible.
We play at Women's Football Club of Charlotte.
That's what I was thinking of.
Do we miss the Charlotte Eagles?
I think we do.
Man, that's a absolute break.
Well, so I'll say something before we get to. I want to talk about the goals. I want to go directly talk about the goals. But I'll say something. I was talking to Anna and Summer after the game, catching up. Those are 2, by the way, working human beings who have full-time jobs and are also playing soccer at an incredibly high level. So shout out to them. It is very much a throwback to the NPSL days, and it's cool. The schedule is weird. The WPSL chose to not do you play everyone once, some of them home, some of them away, unbalanced that way, because they could have done 8. We could have played 8 games.
It would have been a lot of travel, but they could have done it that way if they wanted to.
Yeah, and here's why I hate it, how it currently sits. If there were playoffs, if there was a 4-team playoff, it would make more sense.
Yeah.
Because then you just need to make the playoffs and whatever else. With this, we play Nashville twice, as an example. Let's pretend that we're the best team in the league, which we are. Let's pretend that we're the best team in the league on paper, Nashville's second, and Charlotte is third. If anybody has to play one of those 3 teams, if somebody plays us twice and Nashville twice, as an example, you have a much tougher schedule than someone who plays the worst 2 teams each twice at the bottom and misses us. So the thing that sucks about this schedule is that if it's not balanced, if you have to play everybody, not everybody, if you play a certain number of teams twice, like Nashville, us playing Nashville twice is a really, really hard schedule. Nashville playing us twice is a really, really hard schedule. Let's pretend that Nashville plays the Charlotte Eagles twice and us twice, that's the toughest schedule you could face, essentially, probably.
We have Nashville twice, and we have 865 Alliance twice, which is the old Tennessee Force,
who are very good as well.
Who are also rated in the top, I don't know, whatever, in the top 10 for the South region as a whole.
Right. And which means potentially we have a much tougher, and only the top team goes through.
Yeah.
In this, which is why it's bullshit. If the top 4 teams went into a playoff, it wouldn't matter as much, because then you would have you had a little harder schedule, but if you were one of the best 4 teams, you would have come out of it. have to be the top team. The top team just might have the easiest schedule. They might be the best team that had an easier schedule that didn't draw an extra game or lose an extra game. So that makes me upset. But at the other hand, like, let's just go out and beat the teams we got to beat.
I think at some point we'll get to it towards the end of the season, or maybe after the season's over. But like, I think one of the things that I already want to like impress upon our team, and I mean like as in the organizational sense, is 8 games is not enough. We said this for years in the early days on the men's side. 8 games is not enough. I'm not saying we have to go out and do like 14 or whatever it's going to be in USL league or in the USLW league, for example. But like, I don't think it's crazy that we should be playing at least 10 and preferably 12 games in the regular season.
I agree.
And I also want like to do kind of a weekend preseason game to bring the players in during the spring or whatever, kind of like we did with the men's side. But like, I'm willing to forego that for now as we build the program so that we can get 12 games in the summer. Like, I don't think that's, I think it's a big thing to ask of supporters and fans, because the professional men's side schedule comes thick and fast as well. But like, the women are their own team, and they're not just
they're not their own club. They're their own team.
They're not an add-on.
Yeah, 100%.
To Chattanooga Football Club. They are Chattanooga Football Club. They are the women's first team, and I realize that that's not just like a CFC can control that thing. You have to have other teams in the conference that give a shit and that also want to play more games, and I get that. So
I mean, the intermediate term, or you know what I'm trying to say. The medium term goal may be before, if the WPSL does not buy in and we don't get the number of league games we need, you get the most league games you can, and then you put friendlies in, like the old when do we play Middlesbrough?
Call up Asheville or whatever and see if they can get a game.
When do we play Middlesbrough for the men's team? When do we play Tigres? When did we play? I mean, those were their U23 teams, but we played them in July, early July. Between when playoff games would be if we didn't make the playoffs, and we did make the playoffs, so we would play our second string in the middle of the week. But we had guaranteed games further on in the season.
Yeah.
And it may just be that this women's team, because we are further developed as a club versus these other clubs, these other small clubs, CFC is a massive club. If we're further developed that way, we may just have to make our own way by making some extra schedules until the rest of them catch up.
Okay, that was a fun tangent. Let's get back to the game. Let's talk about the goals.
Let's do it. So I'll give a quick recap on Nashville's goals. It's a penalty that is an unlucky. It's a poor clearance and an unlucky kind of bounce, and then she's behind. The girl who's coming in is behind. She's their best player. I didn't write her name down. Very, very interesting player. 2021 NAIA Player of the Year. Like, anyway, she was every bit of danger that came out of their team was from her, and she's in behind, and it's a challenge from behind. It's contact. She goes down. It's a penalty. I know you didn't think it was a penalty, but
it's a clean tackle.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's come back to the referee in a second. So that was the second goal. The first goal is they close down. It's a little like slipped out pass on the close down, and against the same player, she makes a fantastic touch to her right and just sinks it. And it's a really nice play from them. It's a bummer, but also like there's not much you can do about it, because like you collapse on the player that's going to have a good shot, and it's just a little slipped over ball, and she's really, really good. And when you have the best player on the field, with no disrespect to anybody else, but when you have the best player on the field, sometimes that player does good shit. Nashville didn't have many answers or many responses outside of that one player, and that's where their 2 goals come from. Let's go to the referee, and then let's go to our goals. So let's not spend too much time bashing the referee, because it's pointless, because we've talked about it a long time. Unfortunately, the referees in this country are not at the level that the players are in this country, and so the standard of refereeing is even lower than the standard of play, and that's a problem. But this referee was fucking terrible. He let murder be legal all game. That's a good way to put it. He didn't call jack shit all game. And then every time he would call, the very, very occasional ticky-tack fouls that he would call were just inconsistent at best. And I would argue he must have been from Nashville, because they got all the calls. When he made calls, it was in their favor.
I don't understand how we've let the women's game in this country become become wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Like, stuff happens, and I just don't understand that it's allowed to be that physical.
There was a bunch of shit that would have been 100% clear fouls and probably yellow cards in the men's game that was just no call, no foul.
If you were within a zip code of the ball, they were like, "That's clean. Play on."
Oh, there was
Keep going.
There was also a wonderfully shitty moment where the lines judge is waving his flag for a foul, and the center referee just waves him off, looks at him and goes, "Nope, no foul," and the guy puts his flag down.
Like, it's unbelievable. By the way, while we're on the subject, whoever is assigning the referees, just because it's a women's game does not mean that they don't need headsets.
We talked about this for the men's games. They need headsets.
Like, I don't care that there were a little bit fewer people than there would be at a men's professional game. The referees at Finley Stadium have to have headsets.
Agreed.
You cannot communicate. You cannot cover for each other. You're putting the referees in a position to fail, and they always fail.
Agreed.
Fix it.
Agreed. So look, he was fucking terrible, and we still got it done. We still got our 2. So I'm just going to leave it at that so we don't take away attention from the girls who deserve it. The first goal is a give and go. Just a simple, I mean, it's not like...
Well, it starts...
When I say simple, like, it's not a one-time give and go. But it's just like it is 2 players just connecting and doing good shit. So Kaylee passes it to Summer.
Yeah,
Summer runs.
But it starts with a big ball over the top that's settled really well by Kaylee, and in her settling, like, Summer kind of peels out or whatever, so she slides it over to Summer, and then starts her run in behind, and then Summer, and there's a clearer video of this, but like Summer like drives a little bit forward.
Does a couple step overs.
And then like does a little step over thing, and then like does a full like fake look thing, and then drops the ball in. And then Kaylee's got a great first time finish while being fouled. Yes. And keeper gets a hand on it, but can't, it isn't down fast enough to put any power behind it. Ball trickles in.
Well, it didn't really trickle in. It still had some good pace when it went in. But yeah, that is a striker's finish. That is a predator's finish, and Kaylee was a predator on that ball. One of the reasons I say that is the central defender does not make a good challenge on to block the ball or anything, because I don't think she thinks she's shooting yet.
Yeah,
and like it's just
most. Well, I won't say most players, but she's expecting that a lot of players will take one more touch there, and Kaylee's a predator, and Kaylee knows how to score goals. Number 1, and number 2, understands that she's not getting the shot off if she doesn't hit it first time there.
Yeah, and she scores. It's beautiful.
Fantastic. So that's that changes the game.
It does. So from the first 10 minutes before that, I have it in my notes. I was just checking my notes a second ago. The 10 minutes before that, we were getting battered. We had kind of run out of gas, and we were honestly lucky to not concede during that period of time. And then we score that goal, and suddenly we have full tank of gas. They're the ones now getting sinking back. You could definitely tell that goal broke Nashville. Nashville is weak. Nashville has no rhythm, and they were weak mentally. As soon as we got that goal, it became our game, and we were going to get that second goal once that happened. So let's talk about the second goal. Matt, you want to set that one up, or you want me to?
You go for it.
So it comes from a long ball. We have, at this point, Randy is very much riding the wave of substitutes for momentum. So you can see him on the sidelines on the rewatch, and he's got St. Louis with him, but he's not making the sub right then. So the first thing that happens is, as soon as Kaylee scores, something during that period, I don't know if she gets cut or if she had already had a cut that like reopened or whatever happened.
Could have been when the defender was sliding, that like her boot.
Defender doesn't slide.
Arm.
Defender doesn't slide. Defender runs through and misses.
Oh, well.
It's like she like tries to like shoulder challenge and block, and she's like it's just bad.
I wonder if she just like lands on it at some point
potentially, because she does slide, like Kaylee slides on the shot or whatever else. Either way, she gets something happens to her arm. They start trying to like bandage it up. They can't bandage it up. It's not like 15 or 20 seconds into that bandaging process that immediately Brie Hurtado is just sent on. So Brie Hurtado becomes one of the forwards, and at some point, you don't see it on camera, Bailey Doll gets subbed off, and Ava Van Doren goes to right wing back. So we have a striker playing right wing back. We have a few minutes later, he picks out a moment, and he's like, okay, not Sage, it was Maudsley come out, the 6 come out, and St. Louis goes in. But like very much again, riding that, it looked to me like riding that wave of momentum, like picking the right moment to sub in. and we were pushing forward and we were getting dangerous moments. So Bree was not playing out wide like I kind of expected she would. She was playing as one of the forwards. And then suddenly we had two midfielders, two outside backs that were, KD Johnson is a wide forward that can play wing back and is like, I don't want to take anything away from her defending. She's also a good defender. But we were playing then at that point a 3-2-5. And that was fun. So we come up with the ball, and Anna Lanter plays a big, long, looping cross that is kind of into the danger zone, but there's nobody near it. And the goalkeeper parries it out of bounds, probably for no reason. I don't know. And that's when we get the corner. Bree puts a beautiful ball in to the second post, to the back post, where everyone just forgot. They're like, oh, St. Louis, she might be the National Player of the Year for St. Lucia like 5 years in a row. But, there's no way she would score this unmarked at point blank range. Oh, wait, yeah, duh, dipshits. And she just puts it right in, and I don't want to say it's an easy finish because it's coming through a crowd and it's with her feet.
That's on a volley. That's not an easy finish.
But it's also like, how dare you disrespect her and not mark her? And she took full advantage of every bit of that. And suddenly it was 2-2, and the celebration was awesome. And Nashville was broken. They came down and they provided some pressure late on to try to go score, but they were broken.
Yeah. Now
once we got that first goal, we broke their will.
There's one key piece that I think also contributed to Nashville like being broken. It was after the first goal.
Was it that we had all the rhythm in the drums and they had no rhythm?
It was after the first goal, but before we got the second one. And it was the one-on-one save.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
That Caroline makes in the 86th minute.
So that is the 86th minute. I have it written down here. In the 80th, we score and Van Doren goes to right wing back somewhere in there. The 86th minute, huge one-on-one save from Caroline. They finally get through. They finally get their breakthrough, and it feels like they're going to get there. And by the way, we had a big chance in the 69th from Kaylee, and once it got blocked, we had 10 kind of bad minutes of whatever. Like we kind of had at that point felt like we had run out of energy. We play our bad 10 minutes, then we score, then we play our great 10 minutes. But in the middle of that 10 minutes, there is a giant one-on-one chance that Caroline just turns into Superwoman, like she has often done.
And we've seen that from her. Twice in the game on Saturday. We've seen it before. Previous year, she every now and then, she's got that huge save in her, and
she had two of them in this game.
And this team, I think, we got that goal and tails were up and we were moving, and then she made that save, and tails really went up.
Yep.
This, the belief of oh, this thing's on.
And so we scored in the 80th and the 89th. Once we scored, and obviously once we got that big stop, we just defended. We cleared it long. We did exactly what we needed to do to finish out the game.
Randy made a sub as well.
Immediately once we scored,
yeah,
brought Maudsley back into the six, which was great coaching through that whole period of time. Exactly what you'd want. He bet we had 5 forwards, and then we were back to our shell, and we just took care of business from the rest of the game.
I will say, and this was even after the second goal, so we were back to the shell or whatever. But that shell was almost a back four. Because Ava Van Doren was playing right back, and it was basically a back four, and I wondered, I don't know the reason for this, but I wonder if he just leaves Katie Johnson a little bit higher, just as a potential release valve almost, if there's a turnover, and she can just get on her horse and go, and enough to keep Nashville's right back from being able to progress forward. Because Nashville's right back had a pretty good game, and was a hub for distribution to get the ball into Nashville's 10, where
the only player
who was their game changer.
Yep.
And I just wonder if it was. Maybe we'll have to ask him one day later about this.
We were 6.5 days into the season at that point. There's not a fucking chance he's had the time to diagram that thing in. That was personnel as policy, my friend. That I love that you're giving credit to Randy and the team. And later on in the season, that might be the case. I would bet all the money I have that was just how things worked out. And by the way, Evan Van Doren at right wingback made a giant defensive play.
Yeah,
it was great. But yeah, there's not a fucking chance that was the plan. That is how it worked out, and he might tell you that's the plan. I will not believe anyone that tells me that was the plan.
Well, Breezy, you're gonna have a chance to. I think I have a chance to ask him about that.
Hopefully this week.
Hopefully, So let's just let the cat out of the bag here. We are currently scheduled. Things can obviously change, but we are currently scheduled to interview Randy on Thursday, with a view to release either Thursday late afternoon, evening, or Friday morning.
Depending on how fast Andrew can edit.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's all.
That's me,
all,
by the way.
That's all Andrew and not me.
I know I introduced myself as Breezy, and that is my name, but yeah, in this case, it's got to be Andrew editing. Put my professional hat on.
Yeah, so like if you've got questions, if you whatever, and we'll put out the call on social media, but like if you've got questions, if you've got stuff you're interested in, now is a great time to ask. We can get into tactics. We can go do whatever we want.
Yep.
Should be interesting. And obviously, like he did an interview last year with the folks from the 423 Soccer Pod.
I think he did one this year with them as well.
I think so as well. So like
a couple weeks ago.
We've got those to go on a little bit too. But I have a feeling we're gonna get.
I have a feeling no one's as nerdy as we are. Let's put it that way.
Well, and
as dumb as us.
And like we're gonna mean to like talk about like tactics and nerd shit, and we're gonna end up talking about like fries and stuff for like actually in like an hour or something.
Absolutely, we are.
Let's go
to our three key takeaways.
Yeah, I was gonna say this pod's running a bit because we've had some stuff to say, and we're both like absolutely yazzed from the game. So let's do our three things.
Let's blow through these three takeaways. Do you want to do yours first?
You know what? Sure, I'll do mine first. First key takeaway from me: I'd rather be lucky than good. Nashville was the better team. They probably have a collection of better players. Just being straight up, they had more of the game than we did,
and they certainly had the one player that was the game changer.
And they had the absolute
offensive game changer,
wondrously good player.
Yeah, I want to say offensive game changer because I don't know if she can defend.
Yeah, so but I'd rather be lucky than good. But what I will say is, this team that we have is decent. They are
much improved.
They're much improved. I think they're going to get better with some the additions rolling in. I think it's going to help our depth. And yeah, I think I'm looking forward to the rest of the summer, for sure. Point number 2. I think I said this actually earlier, but we didn't have as much possession as I wanted, and part of that's Nashville. But our possession had a purpose, and it didn't always come off. In fact, it kind of almost rarely came off once we hit the attacking third. But like everything we did had purpose. We were setting up, even like playing back a little bit. We were trying to set up the next ball out, and you could see like there were some moments where, the team was not quite on the same page, but had the same ideas, and that's stuff that's going to come with time. And it was really nice to see. Number 3, man, that was a coaching masterclass from Randy. And you mentioned this, but writing the vibes, writing the momentum, like choosing when to put certain players. Look, Kaylee Burrell had a goal. That was off the bench. Kristen St. Louis had a goal. That was off the bench. Brie Hurtado had an assist. That was off the bench. Like, damn.
Yeah.
Damn. And then putting Maudsley back on for Brie right after it was 2-2 to start locking things down.
Moving Van Doren to right wing back.
Yeah,
to when we were chasing the game.
Those were some really, really good decisions. And I think, hats
deserve
off.
Some praise.
Hats off to Randy for that one. And I mentioned for my bonus thing that we already covered is that, we're thin at the 6 right now. And so I guess a thing to watch.
When Sam went out with her injury.
Yeah, so I think the thing to watch is as we add new players to the squad, and our next game is Saturday, May 27, the first of a doubleheader. The thing to watch is do we have anyone new available at least, and how does that change some of the rotations? How does that change the formation, and kind of how do we build on where we already are, which is a good place.
Yeah, I agree with that. Love all of those. I'll give you my quick takeaways. My number 1 and your number 1 and my number 1 are pretty similar. I said Nashville is not that much better than us. They had one exceptional player, but kind of top to bottom, I would say they were just a little tick above us, talent-wise. And honestly, it didn't really matter. Had that been the case, had you take out their one exceptional player and we just go, that's probably a 0-0 game. We could also win 1-0. They could win 1-0, but they really created nothing offensively without her. So I would even argue, I don't know what they would have created offensively we might have even been the better team potentially because they didn't play super well. Very talented team. I'm not trying to take anything away from Nashville, but they had one player that was an absolute difference maker. That's a giant improvement from last year where they were just better top to bottom every moment of every game, 1 through 11, except for Anna Lancer. No offense to everybody else, but like we got shellacked in those games. So measuring up against a similar measuring stick from last year, this feels very, very good. This feels like a giant step in the right direction. It's one game in. This is way too much to take out of one game. We shouldn't take this much, but I feel good about it. The midfield, Mara and Nadia were very, very good, and they provided a lot of technical quality in the midfield in possession.
Yeah.
That's something we didn't have last year for most of the season, and I don't think teams are going to be able to overrun us as easily as they did last year. I mentioned that earlier. We got overrun both physically and technically last year a lot in the midfield, in part because we couldn't string 3 passes together if they were pressing us. And while our possession didn't always come to what we would want it to, and I think that will grow and that will change and whatever else, you could see the technical ability is there for those 2 players. And obviously the 6 was important. Sam was really important, and we'll see how that develops as well. But there's a ceiling that is different for technical ability in this midfield and for experience-wise, 2 players that have played for their country and that have been in big moments. And then number 3, shots on goal were very few and far between for each team. We lost some in the 70th minute, but like we really held together a team that peppered our goal last year. So I don't know who we're going to play after this, but this is looking at the overall picture of it. We look like a much more balanced, much more complete team, and we should be much more competitive in every game this year if this game is an indication. So that was my 3rd one. I'll give you 2 more bonuses. Momentum is everything. Once we scored, they were in trouble and we kept growing. I mentioned that earlier, but that was huge. Momentum is everything, and thank goodness we knew how to ride that momentum and make the most of it. And then, back to the international experience. It's real. There's 4 players with international experience on this roster in St. Louis, Mara, Nadia, and Katie Johnson. You felt that. You saw that. That's not always the case, but I think you really felt that and saw that in this. And I love that. They were in their first game at Finley Stadium, which you mentioned earlier. Nobody looked overshadowed on our end. The girls did look a little bit flabbergasted when they walked into Chattanooga Brewing Company to very big pops.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, a few of them were like, what is going on? And then, of course, the girls that had been before definitely knew what was going on. So shout out to Randy. Shout out to the girls. What an unbelievable first game. I cannot wait for Saturday. I don't know how I'm going to make it through Saturday because it's a lot. But Matthew, let's wrap this pod up with... I think we're maybe 45 minutes. We might have gone 5 minutes over our normal, but you and I were way too yazzed to only talk for 40 minutes.
We were.
Thank you for listening, listeners. We will catch up with you soon with a review of the men's game, and we'll see you Saturday. Peace.